2:47 a.m., my phone vibrated, displaying a motion alert from the doorbell camera while I was 300 miles away at a conference. The preview revealed my wife, Helena, opening our house door to an unknown man. Instead of reaching out, I opted to monitor the live feed. Owen Casalano, a 42-year-old senior project manager at a civil engineering firm, thought he had a solid partnership with his wife of 14 years, whom he believed he knew well. They resided in a tranquil suburb, their 2 cars free from financial burden, under the presumption of a partnership founded on trust and mutual aspirations. However, my suspicions about the latter were proven unfounded as the camera recorded the scene in crisp 1080p detail. Helena giggling, her hip pushing the door shut while the man held onto her waist. 15 years ago, she gazed at me similarly to how she was looking at him now when we were still new. Sitting in my hotel room, I stared at my phone screen as they strolled past the camera's view towards the living room. The feed didn't show what followed, but I didn't need to witness it. The betrayal was already accomplished. Here's what I did. I captured a screenshot, timestamp included. Next, I logged into our home security system on my laptop, the one Helena believed only monitored the front door and driveway, which I had actually expanded 8 months prior upon noticing irregular charges on our credit card bill. With cameras in the living room, kitchen, and hallway, disguised as smoke detectors and air fresheners, Helena was unaware. I spent the next 4 hours watching my marriage crumble in real time through various camera angles. I observed them in our living room, sipping wine from our wedding crystal. I saw him traverse our house as if appraising property, Helena guiding him to our bedroom, the space where we discussed our future, shared our sorrows and joy. Over the past 13 years, this room held the essence of our shared intimacy. I witnessed her escorting him downstairs at 6 a.m., bidding him goodbye at the door as he left in a black Audi. Then she retreated upstairs, showered, changed the bedding, and texted me, "Missing you, baby, eagerly waiting for your return tomorrow, love you." My response was, "Love you too, see you soon." I couldn't sleep that night. Instead, I scanned through 8 months of stored security footage. The first episode I discovered was from March, 5 months prior to the doorbell alert that set everything in motion. A brief visit while I was at work, lasting 37 minutes. They frequented the kitchen for chats and merriment, maintaining an intimate bond without explicit physicality. By April, visits multiplied, with 2 within a week, each time careful, mainly dressed, yet progress was evident. May introduced overnight stays during my business trips. Garrett Thorne, aged mid-40s, divorced, employed in pharmaceutical sales, added afternoon visits on workdays when I was stuck at the office till 7 p.m. However, July marked a turning point. I discovered recordings of them discussing me, seated at my kitchen table, sipping my coffee, scrutinizing my work schedule as if planning military operations. "He'll be in Denver the whole week," Helena stated in one recording. "Now we can truly spend quality time together, not just these hurried visits. But what about his parents?" the man inquired. Last Sunday, Owen's mother referred to me as the daughter she never had. Unbeknownst to her, her laughter held a toxic essence that crystallized something within me. It wasn't solely about sex, validation, or a midlife crisis. Helena derived pleasure from deceiving me and performing. More than mere videos were required. I needed context, motive, and above all, clarity on whether this was merely an affair or something more sinister. The following morning, I contacted my firm and extended my business trip by 3 days, mentioning networking opportunities. Afterward, I employed a private investigator named Dominic Reeves, a retired police detective known for his work in marital investigations. I requested that he examine financial records for correlation with the timeline, as I suspected fraud might be involved. 72 hours after being asked, Dominic submitted his initial findings. His financial analysis unveiled a discrepancy I hadn't noticed before, stemming from my trust in my wife to handle our household finances. Over a span of 18 months, Helena covertly transferred $47,000 from our shared savings and checking accounts via a sequence of seemingly ordinary transactions. $300 for groceries, $500 for house repairs, and $800 on medical capes that didn't match any confirmed appointments. This money was routed to an unknown account, one opened in her maiden name at another bank. Dominic mentioned there were more revelations when he called with the update. Upon further investigation, I discovered that Helena and Garrett Thorne jointly bought a condo in Riverside 8 months ago, using our funds for the down payment. In that instant, an intense and illuminating fury surged through me. It wasn't just an affair, it was a robbery. I need every detail recorded. I informed him, bank statements, property deeds, camera footage, phone logs if possible. I want a thorough timeline, one that would hold up in court, and I will have it ready within 10 days. Dominic responded, but Owen, this is going to get messy. Are you ready for that? For the past week, I've observed my wife betraying me for 4 hours each night. I responded, I'm already hurt. Now I'm ensuring she doesn't escape unscathed. 3 days later, I returned home with a smile and bouquet of flowers. Upon opening the door, Helena greeted me with a kiss that felt staged, like an audition for a play. We dined together, chatting about our weeks. She spun elaborate tales of lunch dates with friends and running errands, stories I knew were false as I'd witnessed her spending those afternoons with Garrett. With unparalleled dedication, I played the part of the devoted husband. 11 days passed as I waited for Helena to relax enough to slip up, and when she did, her carelessness with her phone was evident. She'd leave it unattended on surfaces, respond to messages without considering who might be nearby, giving the impression of one who felt completely safe. Seizing this opportunity, I feigned a poker night with colleagues on Friday, a ruse that seemed to delight Helena as she suggested watching a movie and going to bed early. At 7:43 p.m., I pretended to leave for the game, instead hiding nearby to observe from my phone as Garrett arrived. This occasion, I arranged my laptop for an unblurred view. They gathered in the living room, sipping wine and consuming takeout. Subsequently, Helena became careless. She abandoned her unlocked phone on the coffee table with visible message notifications as she ventured to the kitchen for additional wine. Garrett seized this opportunity to examine it, his demeanor changing from casual browsing to focused attention. He snapped a picture of the screen using his device. Upon her arrival, Garrett showed Helena a message from a lawyer's office, causing her complexion to pallor. Updating our will was his explanation, as he wanted to ensure everything was up to date. In a tone I had never heard before, Garrett questioned Helena about her departure strategy. "Is there something you're not telling me?" He declared he would manage it. Defensively, Helena clarified their previous discussions, stating that she would file after the holidays but needed more time to ensure the financial situation was appropriately arranged. Confirming her words, Garrett inquired about the house. "I mean, I'm entitled to what's fair after 14 years of marriage," was her response, referring to compensation for missed career opportunities that supported his advancement and her lower salary compared to Owen's. This revelation filled in a missing piece, providing Helena with the final motivation she needed, indicating premeditation. Helena wasn't merely engaged in an affair and planning to depart. She had been carefully considering her actions. Helena was plotting a divorce to ensure maximum financial gain while hiding her infidelity and deceit. Garrett put down his wine, saying, "I need to know our relationship is secure because if this explodes and he discovers the condo, it will." Interrupting, Helena said, "Owen, an engineering genius, is clueless about everything else, even suspecting my supposed book club meetings on Wednesday nights." They both chuckled at that, ridiculing me for my naivety in trusting my spouse. I paused the recording and sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel firmly, mind sharp with resolve. The next morning, I contacted a divorce attorney named Margaret Chen, suggested by Dominic. I provided her with all the evidence, 847 hours of accumulated security footage, financial records showing consistent theft, property documents for the hidden condo, and phone logs obtained legally, showing countless messages between Helena and Garrett. Margin setting the papers on the conference table, Margaret scrutinized them as intensely as a surgeon studies X-rays. "These are thorough," she commented after 20 minutes. "Your wife has perpetrated several types of fraud, misappropriation of marital assets, concealment of property, and if she submits false disclosures in the divorce process, it could be considered perjury. Can we bring criminal charges?" I inquired. "We can supply evidence to the district attorney," Margaret responded cautiously. "However, our main goal should be safeguarding your assets and subjecting her to the maximum civil penalties. The criminal system is volatile. Family court is where we maintain control over the storyline. Margaret has spent 3 hours devising a strategy, and she will file for divorce promptly, listing irreconcilable differences without initially referring to infidelity or fraud. This would compel Helena to submit her own financial disclosures under oath of perjury. Margaret outlined that if she deceives in required disclosures and indeed does so, we can charge her with perjury. Then, we present evidence of fraud and infidelity to a judge who has previously witnessed her committing a crime in his courtroom. I asked when this would occur. She replied she'd file on Monday morning, and by the end of business, Helena would receive the divorce papers at work. That weekend was unusual as Helena and I attended a neighbor's barbecue together, where we held hands, exchanged jokes, and I assisted her in carrying dishes back to the house while she discussed planning a vacation to wine country the following spring. Helena suggested Napa, smiling at me with the same smile that had won my heart 16 years prior. "That sounds perfect," I replied on Monday afternoon, during a client meeting reviewing structural calculations, while Helena was served divorce papers at her job as a medical office coordinator. She phoned me 17 times within 2 hours. Each call was left unanswered until 6 o'clock when I eventually picked up. Her voice was trembling then. "What on earth is happening here? Are you serving me divorce papers?" she asked. "Absolutely serious," I replied evenly. "We must discuss this matter in person. This is utterly absurd. We can attempt to resolve whatever issues trouble you," I suggested. "There's nothing to resolve," I added. "My lawyer will handle all future correspondence. It would be wise for you to obtain legal representation as well." An hour later, she appeared at the house, and that same day I replaced the locks. She banged on the door, shouting and pleading to talk like rational adults, but I stood in the doorway, preventing her from entering. "This place is no longer your home. Your possessions will be cataloged for pickup at a later time." Helena's face turned red, tears streaming as she expressed anger and seemingly calculated her next move. "Community property state," I pointed out, "but my name is the only one on the deed because we bought it before marriage. Your lawyer will outline your choices." By Wednesday, she had hired a lawyer, Todd Berkman, known for his aggressive divorce methods. In less than a week, Helena filed a counterpetition, accusing me of financial misconduct and emotional harm, and demanding half the house, portions of my retirement funds, and $4,000 in monthly alimony. Her sworn financial statement, filed under oath, omitted any mention of a secret bank account, a condo in Riverside, or $47,000 misappropriated funds. Margaret stated when we went over the filing she had just committed perjury. As anticipated, the preliminary hearing was slated for 6 weeks hence. During this period, Helena initiated a social media campaign portraying herself as a victim of a controlling, financially abusive husband who unexpectedly served her with divorce papers. She uploaded photos depicting distress and wrote lengthy captions about recovering from narcissistic abuse. Hundreds of friends extended their sympathy, unaware of the truth. My phone became flooded with messages from concerned associates. "Are you all right? We heard about the separation. We're sorry. Keep us informed." I replied to none. Instead, I forwarded every post and message to Margaret for documentation. Meanwhile, Garrett Thorne committed an error. He uploaded a photo on his social media depicting the vista from a high-rise condo, tagged with its location, Riverside, California. The same building where they covertly owned the property. Dominic discovered it within hours. I mentioned his work was becoming careless, possibly underestimating our vigilance. "Continue with surveillance," I said. "All details should be meticulously recorded until the day we step into court, eve of the preliminary hearing." Margaret had neatly arranged all evidence for a presentation that would methodically undermine Helena's credibility in roughly 12 minutes. "Are you prepared for this?" Margaret inquired during our last preparatory call. "From the moment we commence, there's no retreat." "Her life will unravel before a judge, court personnel, and public records," I replied. "I am ready," I stated. The courtroom was smaller than anticipated. Judge Patricia Walcott presided, a 60-year-old former prosecutor renowned for having a stern stance against perjury or fraud. Helena sat beside her attorney, conservatively attired, her carefully controlled expression suggesting wounded dignity. I caught a glimpse of genuine fear behind the facade when she glanced at me across the courtroom. Judge Walcott initiated the hearing, with Helena's lawyer opening by recounting instances of financial abuse and control. He portrayed his client's husband as a manipulative individual who isolated Helena, controlled their finances without transparency, and then sprung divorce papers on her while cutting off communication. Berkman contended that Helena was denied access to her home, cut off from joint accounts, and subjected to an intimidation campaign intended to force an unfair settlement. Judge Walcott remained expressionless, then called upon Margaret. "Counsel," she stood, "I will present evidence showing Mrs. Casolano's petition is based on falsehoods, fraud, and systematic financial exploitation. With the court's permission, I'd like to introduce this evidence now." The first piece of evidence was Helena's sworn financial declaration, which Margaret displayed on the courtroom screen. Mrs. Casolano affirmed under oath that she possesses no individual accounts, hidden assets, or earnings beyond her income. However, Exhibit A reveals a covert account in her maiden name with $51,000 deposited from shared marital funds without Mr. Casolano's awareness. Furthermore, Exhibit B indicates a joint purchase of a condominium by Mrs. Casolano and Garrett Thane 8 months ago, funded through diverted marital resources for the down payment, an asset she neglected to disclose in her financial declaration. The court questioned Mrs. Casolano. "Did you own property that you failed to include in your sworn petition?" Upon this, Helena's attorney rose and asked the judge on her behalf. The judge demanded a response from Mrs. Casolano, who responded shakily. "Indeed, it seems there might have been an overlooked detail," countered Margaret. "But this isn't a simple oversight, it's perjury. The ensuing 20 minutes were meticulously detailed." Margaret displayed chosen security footage, illustrating Helena and Garrett's secret conversations about deceiving me, their financial strategies, and plans to mislead. She projected bank statements with irrelevant transactions, indicating a systematic embezzlement of funds. She unveiled text messages regarding their affair and divorce planning. As each new piece of evidence was presented, Helena visibly shrank in her chair. Her lawyer's objections grew weaker, more frantic. The last exhibit was the recording from poker night, where Helena and Garrett discussed manipulating financial outcomes from the divorce while hiding their fraudulent activities. "Over the holidays, I will be filing," Helena's voice echoed in the courtroom. Judge Walcott signaled a pause, stating she needed a few more months to rectify the financial predicament. Her request was granted. The side conference, lasting 3 minutes, concluded. Upon her return, Margaret bore a somber expression. Judge Walcott addressed the courtroom, accusing Mrs. Casolano of perjury, asset diversion to secret accounts, and deceit in her representations throughout the proceedings. Helena was now openly weeping. Her tears were not feigned for sympathy, but rather a reaction to her entire strategy crumbling before her eyes. The judge then ordered an immediate freeze on all accounts in Mrs. Casolano's name pending investigation. "I am forwarding this issue to the district attorney for possible criminal charges, and I am approving Mr. Casolano's divorce petition with finality." Turning to Helena's lawyer, she stated, "Your client is entitled to legal representation, but not to benefit from deceit. Any negotiation regarding settlement will factor in the complete sum misused along with penalties." The gavel struck. Helena attempted to approach me in the courthouse corridor, but Margaret barred her path. "No interaction, all communication passes through lawyers." In a trembling voice, Helena pleaded, "Can't we simply discuss for 5 minutes?" I stared at her for an extended moment. The woman who was once my love, trust, and life partner, the one who systematically breached every vow we made, stood before me. "No," I responded concisely, and departed as the criminal probe progressed more swiftly than anticipated. In a span of 3 weeks, the district attorney's office deemed Helena's fraud substantial enough to file charges, including conversion of marital assets, perjury, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Garrett Thorne was implicated as well. His part in buying the condo with embezzled funds classified him as an accomplice under California law. Both parties accepted plea bargains to bypass a trial. Helena was sentenced to 2 years probation, required to pay $47,000 restitution along with penalties, and given a permanent fraud conviction on her record. Garrett paid equal restitution and received 18 months probation. The divorce settlement was concluded 4 months following the preliminary hearing. Helena was left only with her personal possessions and an obligation to repay every stolen dollar. The house and retirement accounts remained mine. She bore her legal fees. The secret condo in Riverside was liquidated to meet the restitution judgment. Helena and Garrett's relationship crumbled due to the criminal charges, with mutual friends informing me that they accused each other for the situation worsening and terminated communication before the settlement deals were concluded. To ease my concerns, I modified the security camera passwords, revised all financial accounts, and had the locks rekeyed again. 6 months following the divorce's completion, a letter arrived at my office through Margaret's forwarding service. The handwriting on the envelope was Helena's. I almost discarded it unread. However, curiosity prevailed. The contents were a single page. "Owen, you likely won't ever read this, but I need to write it nonetheless. What I did was indefensible. I damaged something genuine for something fleeting and destroyed myself during the process. I don't seek forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I merely wanted you to be aware that I comprehend now what I had lost. I apologize. Helena, after reading it once, I ran it through the shredder in my home office. Some apologies arrived too late, some betrayals wound too deeply, and certain doors sealed shut never open again. A year since everything concluded, I shared dinner with my younger brother Evan, who stood by me throughout that ordeal. He proposed a toast with his beer glass. "To the most patient revenge scheme I've ever observed," he said. "Believe me, Owen, you monitored them for months without faltering." "That's chilling." "It wasn't revenge," I retorted. "Vengeance stems from emotion. This was gathering proof. What's the distinction?" Pondering his words, I reflected on the countless hours of footage, the meticulous record-keeping, and the strategic patience. Revenge would have involved confronting them straight away, yelling, issuing threats, possibly resorting to violence. That may have offered temporary relief for a short while. Helena would have accused unfairly and portrayed herself as a victim, likely departing with half of all possessions. Instead, I took a sip, focusing on gathering evidence while remaining emotionless as I observed them. No resentment or hurt, just facts accumulating. This allowed for no debate in the future, only undeniable proof presented to a judge accustomed to liars, providing crystal-clear clarity. "Still frightening," Evan commented, but he wore a smile. I returned his grin. The doorbell camera that initiated everything continues to monitor my front door. Now, motion alerts mostly signify delivery personnel and wandering cats. I've abstained from dating since the divorce, perhaps in time. For now, I'm reconstructing the life Helena attempted to seize, one where I maintain full control over my household activities. And if there's a lesson to be gleaned from this ordeal, it's that patience isn't complacency. On occasion, patience can be the most forceful approach taken. All you need is patience to seize the optimal time.